Su Yanran never thought dying would be so quiet. No pain, no light, no dramatic last words. One moment, she was walking home after overtime, thinking about what to eat for dinner. The next moment, everything went black. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer standing on a street. She was standing in a vast hall shrouded in gray mist. The ground beneath her feet was cold and smooth, like polished stone. Dim lanterns floated in the air, casting faint shadows that swayed unnaturally. Figures stood in rows on both sides, ghost soldiers in dark armor, motionless and silent. Am I dead? She asked quietly. At the far end of the hall sat a black throne. A man dressed in dark robes sat there, his expression unreadable. His presence alone made the air feel heavy. A ghost official hurried forward, holding a glowing book. Su Yanran, he read aloud. Female, age 24. Cause of death.
He stopped, frowned,
Flipped a page, then flipped another. The ghost official's face slowly drained of color. The man on the throne noticed immediately. What is it? The ghost official swallowed. And my lord, there seems to be a problem. Su Yanran felt a strange chill crawl up her spine. What kind of problem? The man asked calmly. The ghost official lowered his voice. Her life record hasn't ended. Silence. The lantern flames flickered. The man on the throne narrowed his eyes. Explain. The ghost official hurriedly said, her soul was summoned early. According to the registry, she was supposed to live another 46 years. Wait, she said slowly. So you're saying I shouldn't be here? The ghost official stiffened. The hall erupted into quiet chaos. Other officials rushed over, checking records, whispering urgently. It's confirmed. It was a clerical mistake. The soul was pulled in by error. Su Yanran felt a mix of disbelief and irritation. So, she said carefully, I died because of a mistake? No one met her eyes. The man on the throne finally spoke. His voice was deep and steady. The underworld made an error. Su Yanran let out a short breath. She didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. And now, she asked. The man looked at her. Your original body is already dead. That cannot be reversed. Her heart sank slightly. But, he continued, the underworld will compensate you. Su Yanran lifted her head. Compensation. You will be allowed to reincarnate, the man said. With intact memories. Into another world. The ghost official added nervously. A good one. Stable. No premature death. Su Yanran was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right, she said softly. I'll accept that. The man raised his hand. Prepare the reincarnation passage. A faint glow surrounded Su Yanran's body. As her consciousness began to fade, she heard the ghost officials murmuring behind her. This is the third mistake this century. We're definitely getting reported. The king is furious. Su Yanran's last thought before losing awareness was oddly calm. If I'm starting over, then I'll live properly this time. Su Yanran felt like she was falling. There was no wind, no sound, only the sensation of drifting downward, as if sinking into deep water. Her consciousness blurred, then slowly gathered again. The first thing she noticed was pain. A dull ache spread across her temples, followed by a sharp sting in her chest. She frowned and tried to move. Her eyelids felt heavy, but she forced them open.
White.
A low ceiling stained slightly yellow by age. A faint smell of disinfectant mixed with something metallic. The sound of footsteps echoed somewhere nearby. Hospital, she murmured. Her voice came out hoarse, unfamiliar. That voice, it wasn't hers. Memories rushed into her mind without warning, messy and overwhelming, like a dam breaking all at once. A small, rundown house. Cold winters. Endless laundry. A gentlewoman coughing at night. Arguments behind closed doors. Her breathing grew uneven. She swallowed. I'm not Su Yanran anymore. This body belonged to someone else. Her name was Su Ling. 18 years old. Year: 1973.
Poor.
Powerless. And alone. Yenran lay still, slowly sorting through the memories. The original Su Ling had lived a quiet, exhausting life. She had dropped out of school early to work. Everything she earned went to medical bills. Because her mother was sick. Very sick. Just as that thought surfaced, the curtain beside the bed was pulled aside. A nurse walked in, holding a clipboard. She paused when she saw Yenran awake. "Oh, you're finally conscious," the nurse said with relief. "You gave us quite a scare." Yenran opened her mouth, then hesitated. She adjusted quickly. "How is my mother?" she asked. The nurse sighed. "She's stable for now. But the situation isn't optimistic." Yenran's heart tightened slightly. The nurse continued. "Internal injuries from the accident. She needs surgery as soon as possible." Otherwise, she didn't finish the sentence. Yenran nodded slowly. "How much?" The nurse glanced at the clipboard.
A lot.
"Especially for your family." Yenran closed her eyes briefly. So this was the life she had been compensated with. Not a palace. Not wealth. But a mess. The nurse hesitated before adding, "Your father came earlier." Yenran's expression didn't change. "What did he say?" "He asked about the cost," the nurse said awkwardly. "Then he left." Yenran let out a quiet breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "Of course." After the nurse left, the ward fell silent again. Yenran turned her head and looked at the woman lying in the next bed. Su Ling's mother was thin, her face pale, breathing shallow but steady. Even unconscious, her brows were slightly furrowed, as if worried about something. Yenran felt an unfamiliar tightness in her chest. "She must have been worried about you until the end," Yenran murmured softly. At that moment, her fingers brushed against something cold. A ring. Black gold, simple in design, resting quietly on her finger. Yenran paused. "You followed me?" As if responding, the ring grew faintly warm. A strange sensation spread through her palm and into her mind. Then, her vision blurred. She saw a vast empty space, suspended in darkness. Shelves appeared, neatly arranged. Boxes. Containers. Objects she didn't recognize.
Gold.
Medicine bottles.
Cloth. Tools.
And at the center, a faintly glowing symbol. Yenran sucked in a sharp breath. "So this is the compensation," she whispered. "Not power in the dramatic sense, but resources. Enough to survive. Enough to change things." When the sensation faded, Yenran opened her eyes again, calmer this time. "All right," she said quietly. "Let's take this step by step." Before she could think further, hurried footsteps approached the ward. The curtain was yanked aside. A middle-aged man stood there, his clothes neat, expression impatient rather than worried. Su Ling's father. "You're awake," he said flatly. "Good." Yenran looked at him. "What do you want?" she asked. The man frowned. "What kind of tone is that?" "I came to discuss something important." Yenran waited. "There's a man," he continued, lowering his voice, "who's willing to help with the medical expenses." Yenran's gaze sharpened slightly. "And he wants to meet you," the man said. "A blind date. Just dinner." Yenran finally understood. She nodded slowly. "I see." The man relaxed, thinking she had agreed. Sure, father said. After her father left, the ward fell quiet again. Su Yenran, now Su Ling, lay still for a while, sorting through her thoughts. A blind date. In this era, it wasn't unusual, especially for poor families, especially for girls. The original Su Ling had been terrified of it. She had cried the whole night before finally agreeing, believing she had no other choice. Yenran, however, felt oddly calm. "If I have to go," she murmured, "then I might as well see what kind of man is worth all this trouble." She reached out and gently adjusted the blanket covering her mother. "I won't let you worry anymore," she said softly. The next afternoon, Yenran was discharged from the hospital. She walked out carrying a small cloth bag, wearing a faded blue shirt and black trousers. The clothes were clean but clearly old. Her hair was tied back simply. She caught her reflection in a glass window.
Thin.
Young. Tired-looking. But her eyes were steady. "This body isn't strong," she muttered. "But it'll do." Back at the small house, Yenran quickly became familiar with the environment. The furniture was old. The stove barely worked. There was little food. The only thing that surprised her was how quiet everything felt. No phone notifications. No traffic noise. No screens glowing in every corner. Just the ticking of a wall clock. Yenran stared at it for a moment, then chuckled softly. "Well," she said, "at least insomnia won't be a problem." As evening approached, her father returned. "You're ready?" he asked, glancing at her clothes with dissatisfaction. "You could have dressed better." Yenran didn't argue. "There's no point dressing expensively for a first meeting." The man snorted. "Don't say unnecessary things. Just behave properly." Yenran followed him out without another word. The blind date was arranged at a state-run guest house. From the outside, the building looked formal and imposing. A red slogan banner hung above the entrance. Yenran paused at the door. "This place isn't cheap," she noted quietly. Her father stiffened slightly. "Don't ask so many questions." Yenran smiled faintly, but said nothing. Inside, the atmosphere was stiff. Wooden chairs. White teacups. A few people sitting far apart, speaking in low voices. They were led to a table near the window. "Wait here," her father said. "The man will arrive soon." Yenran nodded and sat down. She picked up the teacup and took a small sip. "Bitter." "Of course," she murmured. "Even the tea has personality." A few minutes later, footsteps approached. Yenran looked up casually and paused. A tall man walked in wearing a military uniform. His posture was straight, movements disciplined. His expression was calm, serious, and unreadable. He looked young. Younger than she had expected. But what stood out most was the quiet pressure he carried, as if the space around him naturally adjusted to his presence. Yenran didn't stare. She merely glanced, then looked away. The man didn't sit at their table. Instead, he was led to a private room by a staff member. Yenran raised an eyebrow slightly. "Interesting," she murmured. A few minutes later, another man arrived. Middle-aged. Slightly overweight. His eyes lingered on Yenran in a way that made her uncomfortable. "This is him," her father whispered urgently. "Remember what I told you." Yenran stood politely. "Hello," she said evenly. The man smiled. "You're Suling?" Seat. Yenran sat down slowly. The man began talking about his work, his connections, his generosity. Yenran listened quietly. Then she asked one simple question. "May I ask how much you're offering?" The table went silent. Her father nearly choked on his tea. The man blinked. "What?" Yenran repeated herself without changing her tone. "My mother needs surgery. Since this meeting is about money, I think it's reasonable to be direct." The man's expression darkened slightly. "Young people shouldn't talk like that," he said. "It's improper." Yenran nodded. "Then we're not compatible."
She stood.
"I think this meeting can end here." Her father panicked. "Sit down. What are you doing?" Yenran looked at him. For the first time, her gaze was cold. "I agreed to come," she said. "Not to sell myself." The man slammed the table. "Insolent." Before things could escalate further, a calm voice spoke from nearby. "That's enough." Yenran turned. The military man from earlier stood a few steps away, his expression indifferent. "I overheard," he said calmly. "This meeting is over." The room fell silent. Yenran met his eyes. For a brief moment, something unreadable passed between them. The air in the guest house turned strangely still. Everyone looked toward the man in the military uniform. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't even stepped fully into the room. Yet his presence alone seemed to press down on the table like an invisible weight. The middle-aged man frowned. "Who are you?" The soldier glanced at him briefly. His gaze was calm, but sharp enough to make the man instinctively straighten his back. "Lu Jianqing," he said. "Regiment commander." The word commander landed heavily. The guest house staff nearby froze. Even the other diners subconsciously lowered their voices. The middle-aged man's face stiffened. This is a family matter. Lu Jianqing nodded once. It was. Then he added evenly, until you raised your voice.
Su Ling watched quietly.
She had seen men like this before in her previous life. Not necessarily soldiers, but people who carried authority without needing to announce it. They didn't threaten. They simply existed. Lu Jianqing turned his gaze to Yanran. Are you all right? He asked. His tone was neutral. Not concerned, not cold. Simply factual. Yanran nodded.
Ai fine.
Her answer was calm, without gratitude or fear. Lu Jianqing's eyes lingered on her for a brief second longer, as if confirming something. Then he looked at her father. You're her guardian? He asked. The man hesitated. I'm her father. Lu Jianqing nodded again. Then you should know this arrangement is inappropriate. The father forced a laugh. Comrade, you misunderstand. We were just talking. About money, Lu Jianqing said flatly. The man's face flushed. Lu Jianqing continued. Medical expenses are urgent, but using them as leverage in this way is improper. The middle-aged blind date man stood up abruptly. If you're not interested, then forget it. Don't waste my time. Lu Jianqing looked at him. You won't be wasting it anymore, he said calmly. You may leave. The man opened his mouth to argue, then noticed several people watching, including the guest house manager. He swallowed his anger, grabbed his coat, and stormed out. The room felt emptier after he left. Yanran's father looked mortified. This was a misunderstanding, he said quickly. Su Ling, apologize to Comrade Lu. Yanran didn't move. She looked at her father quietly. There's nothing to apologize for, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. The father felt an inexplicable pressure and fell silent. Lu Jianqing glanced at Yanran again.
You can go, he said.
Yanran nodded once. She picked up her bag and stood. Before leaving, she paused. Thank you, she said simply. Lu Jianqing responded with a small nod. As she walked out of the guest house, the cool evening air brushed her face. Yanran let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That could have gone worse, she murmured. Behind her, Lu Jianqing watched her leave. A young woman, calm under pressure,
clear-eyed.
Not what he had expected. Interesting, he thought. Meanwhile, inside the guest house, Yanran's father sat stiffly in his chair. The plan he had carefully arranged had collapsed in less than 10 minutes. And for the first time, he realized something was wrong. Very wrong. His daughter was no longer obedient. The walk home was quiet. Su Yanran, now living as Su Ling, walked a step behind her father. The streetlights cast long shadows on the road, and the evening air carried a faint chill. Neither of them spoke. Her father's footsteps were heavy, uneven, filled with frustration. Halfway home, he finally stopped. Do you know what you just did? He demanded, turning around. That man could have solved everything. Yanran looked at him calmly. He could have bought everything. Her father frowned. What's the difference? Yanran answered evenly. One is help. The other is a transaction I didn't agree to.
He scoffed.
You think dignity pays hospital bills? Yanran tilted her head slightly.
No.
But selling me won't either. The man fell silent. For some reason, arguing with her felt exhausting. They reached the house soon after. Her father didn't follow her inside. He lingered at the door, clearly torn between anger and uncertainty. I'll find another way, he said stiffly. You just don't cause trouble. Yanran nodded lightly. I won't. But as soon as the door closed behind her, her expression changed. She sat down on the wooden stool and exhaled slowly. That was messy, she muttered, but manageable. She glanced toward the small bedroom where her mother slept, breathing shallowly but steadily. The surgery couldn't wait. Yanran closed her eyes and focused. The black gold ring warmed again. The space appeared before her, quiet, organized, waiting. She examined its contents carefully this time. Gold ingots, old-style currency, medicine bottles labeled in unfamiliar script, cloth bolts,
tools.
and a small metal case. She opened it. Inside lay several neatly stacked bundles of cash. Yenran stared at them for a long moment. So that's how it is, she murmured. The Underworld hadn't given her luck. They had given her capital. She rubbed her temples lightly. All right, I see your point. The next morning, Yenran left the house early. She wore the same simple clothes and carried the same cloth bag. But this time, her steps were steady. At the hospital, she went straight to the payment counter. I'd like to settle the surgery deposit, she said calmly. The clerk looked up, surprised. All of it? Yes. The clerk hesitated. Do you have the funds? Yenran placed the money on the counter. The clerk froze. Please wait. Within minutes, a doctor hurried over. You're the patient's daughter? He asked. You've secured the payment? Yenran nodded. The doctor's tone softened immediately. We'll arrange the surgery as soon as possible. Yenran bowed slightly. Thank you. As she stepped out of the office, she felt something unfamiliar. Relief. For the first time since waking up in this body, she felt in control. Outside, a military jeep passed slowly by the hospital gate. Inside it, Lu Jiansheng glanced out the window by chance and saw Yenran standing there, sunlight falling across her face. He paused. She again, he thought. Something about this situation felt unfinished. Yenran, meanwhile, was unaware of his gaze. She looked up at the sky and let out a quiet breath. One problem solved, she murmured, and many more coming. Far away, in the underworld, a certain ledger flipped a page on its own, and a name glowed faintly.
Su Yanzan. Su Ling.
The compensation was not finished yet. The surgery took 6 hours. Su Yanran sat on a wooden bench outside the operating room, hands folded in her lap, posture straight. She hadn't moved much the entire time. Nurses passed by, some glancing at her with curiosity. Most families pacing outside the operating room cried, argued, or panicked. This young woman simply waited. When the operating room doors finally opened, Yenran stood immediately. The doctor removed his mask and nodded. The surgery was successful. Yenran released a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Thank you, she said quietly. The doctor hesitated, then added, Your mother will need careful recovery. No heavy labor.
Prope nutrition.
Yenran nodded. I understand. As the hospital bed was wheeled out, Yenran followed closely. She watched her mother's pale face, the slow, steady rise and fall of her chest. It's done, she murmured softly. You'll be all right. At that moment, hurried footsteps echoed down the corridor. Her father appeared, slightly out of breath. How is she? He asked quickly. Yenran answered calmly. The surgery was successful. Her father's shoulders visibly relaxed. Then he paused. Wait, he said slowly. Surgery? Yenran nodded. Yes.
His face changed.
You mean already? Yes. His eyes widened. But the money? I paid, Yenran said simply. Silence. Her father stared at her. You, he asked incredulously. How could you possibly? Yenran looked at him calmly. Does it matter?
Of course it mattered.
He had spent the entire night thinking of backup plans, excuses, and people to pressure. And now she told him everything was already handled. The father cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, that's good. Very good. Yenran didn't respond. After settling the paperwork, Yenran arranged a nurse for her mother and left the hospital briefly to buy necessities. Outside the gate, she overheard 2 women whispering. That girl, didn't she come in yesterday with no money? Yes, I heard her mother was sent home. Then how did she suddenly pay? Yenran pretended not to hear. She returned home later that afternoon. The small house felt quieter than usual. She cleaned, boiled water, prepared food. Simple tasks she had done countless times in her previous life, yet they felt different now. That evening, her father returned again. He looked unusually hesitant. Su Ling, he began. About the money. Yenran continued, wiping the table. You don't need to worry about it. That's exactly what worries me, he muttered. Yenran finally looked up. Father, she said evenly, I didn't borrow it from anyone you know.
He froze.
Then where? You don't need to know, she replied calmly. What matters is that mother is safe. The man stared at her. This daughter of his was no longer transparent. The next morning, rumors spread through the neighborhood. Did you hear? Su Ling suddenly got money. I heard a military man helped her. No, it was a rich businessman. I heard she sold her job quota. Yanran listened silently while buying vegetables. She paid, picked up her bag, and left without explaining a single thing. At the hospital, her mother finally woke up. When she opened her eyes and saw Yanran, tears immediately welled up. Lingling, she whispered weakly. Did I survive? Yanran smiled gently.
Yes.
The surgery went well. Her mother's fingers trembled as she grabbed Yanran's sleeve. The money, how did you? Yanran squeezed her hand softly.
Don't worry about that.
Just rest. Her mother studied her face for a long moment. You've changed, she said quietly. Yanran smiled. Maybe I just grew up. That afternoon, Yanran stepped outside to buy medicine. As she exited the hospital gate, a familiar military jeep was parked nearby. She paused. The window rolled down. Lu Jiancheng sat inside, his expression neutral. You again, he said. Yanran raised an eyebrow slightly. It seems so. He glanced toward the hospital building. Your mother? The surgery was successful, Yanran replied. Lu Jiancheng nodded. Good. There was a brief pause. Then he asked, the money issue resolved? Yanran looked at him calmly. Yes. He didn't ask how. Instead, he said, that's good. The simplicity of his response surprised her slightly. Before she could reply, someone called his name. Lu Jiancheng rolled the window up and drove off. Yanran watched the jeep disappear. Strange man, she murmured. Back home, her father sat at the table, clearly restless. I heard rumors today, he said carefully. About a soldier. Yanran poured herself water. People talk. Yes, but he hesitated. Are you involved with him? Yanran nearly laughed. No, she said flatly. We spoke twice. Her father didn't look reassured. That night, Yanran lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. The day had gone smoothly. Too smoothly. She touched the ring on her finger. Somewhere deep inside, she felt a faint sense of unease. As if this new life wasn't done testing her yet. Rumors, once they started, never moved slowly. By the third day after the surgery, half the neighborhood had their own version of Su Ling's story. Some said she had secretly married a soldier. Others insisted she had caught the eye of a powerful cadre. One particularly creative version claimed she had inherited money from a distant relative she never mentioned. Yanran heard all of it. She heard it while lining up for grain. She heard it while waiting for hot water. She even heard two aunties whispering behind her back at the hospital. That girl looks quiet, but who knows? I heard the man came in a military jeep. No wonder she suddenly had money. Yanran pretended not to notice. She had learned long ago that explaining only made stories grow legs. Her father, however, was not so calm. He burst into the house one afternoon, his face pale. Su Ling, he said urgently, you need to tell me the truth. Yanran was sorting dried vegetables. She didn't look up. About what? The rumors, he snapped. Do you know what people are saying? Yanran nodded. More or less. They say you're involved with a military officer, he said in a low voice. Do you know what that means? Yanran finally turned to look at him. It means, she said calmly, they have imagination. This isn't funny, he hissed. If this spreads to the work unit, then they'll ask for proof, Yanran said evenly. Her father froze. A proof? Yanran nodded. And you don't have any. The man stared at her. Somehow, she sounded more reasonable than he did. You shouldn't provoke people, he said weakly. Yanran smiled faintly. I didn't. They did. That afternoon, Yanran went to the hospital again. Her mother's condition was improving. She could sit up now and even managed a weak smile. I heard people talking, her mother said hesitantly. Lingling, are you in trouble? Yanran shook her head gently.
No.
Just noise. Her mother studied her face, then sighed. You're stronger than before. Yanran smiled. I have to be. Outside the ward, two nurses whispered excitedly. I heard the soldier is very young. Handsome too. Do you think he'll come again? Yanran walked past them calmly. At the same time, across town, Lu Jiancheng sat in his office, flipping through documents. A young soldier stood awkwardly in front of his desk. Commander, he said hesitantly, can I ask you something personal? Lu Jiancheng didn't look up. Speak. The soldier scratched his head. Are you engaged? Lu Jiancheng paused.
No.
Oh, the soldier said. Because people outside are saying you're secretly supporting a girl from the civilian hospital. Lu Jiancheng finally looked up. What? The soldier hurried on. They say you paid for her mother's surgery. Lu Jiancheng frowned slightly. That's false. Oh, the soldier said again, relieved.
Good.
Because they also say she's already calling you. Enough, Lu Jiancheng said flatly. The soldier snapped to attention and fled. Lu Jiancheng leaned back slightly. So rumors reached here already, he thought. For reasons he couldn't explain, he wasn't annoyed, just mildly curious. Back home, Yanran was preparing soup when her father cautiously approached again. If people think you have backing, he said carefully, it might not be bad. Yanran stopped stirring. She looked at him slowly. So now it's useful? He avoided her gaze. Yanran turned back to the stove. Then let them think whatever they want, she said calmly. Her father felt a strange discomfort. He had planned to control the situation. Instead, the situation was controlling him. That night, Yanran sat by the window, listening to cicadas. She touched the ring absent-mindedly. The rumors were noisy, but noise could be useful. She smiled faintly. If people want a story, she murmured, I'll give them one they can't twist. Somewhere nearby, a military jeep slowed briefly, then continued on. And, without realizing it, two lives were already being quietly pushed onto the same path. Su Yanran had never planned to use rumors. But once she realized they existed, she also realized something else. Rumors, if left alone, grew wild. But if guided carefully, they could become shields. The next morning, she deliberately took a longer route to the market. She didn't rush. She didn't avoid people. She simply walked calmly, greeting neighbors politely, stopping to ask about prices, listening without reacting. And she noticed something interesting. When she appeared confident, people whispered less. When she stayed silent, people filled the silence for her. At the grain stall, two women stood nearby, speaking loudly enough to be overheard. I heard that soldier came again last night. Yes, in a jeep. Very official-looking. Yanran paid for her grain and turned to leave. Just before stepping away, she paused and said lightly, My mother's recovering well. Thank you for asking. The two women froze. They hadn't asked. Yanran smiled politely and walked off. By noon, the story had shifted. She didn't deny it. She thanked people. Maybe it's true. Yanran heard the updates from her father, who paced the room restlessly. This is getting out of hand, he muttered. People are saying you're already promised. Yanran 보ret 대학알림리. Then you should correct them, she said. Her father hesitated.
How?
Yanran looked at him. By explaining the truth. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He knew exactly how that would go. That afternoon, Yanran went to the supply cooperative to buy cloth. The place was crowded. She stood patiently in line, listening to the low chatter around her. The soldiers, very young. Probably going to rise fast. That girl is lucky. Yanran stepped forward to the counter. Just as she handed over the ration ticket, someone bumped into her from behind. Sorry, a male voice said immediately. Yanran turned. Lu Jianqing stood there, holding a bag of supplies, clearly just as surprised. You, he said. Yanran blinked once. Commander Lu, she replied calmly. The woman behind the counter looked between them, eyes lighting up. Oh, she said. You know each other? Lu Jianqing paused. Yanran spoke first. "We've met," she said simply. The woman smiled broadly. "I knew it." Yanran accepted her cloth and stepped aside. Lu Jianqing followed. Outside, he spoke quietly. "This wasn't planned." Yanran nodded. "I know." He hesitated, then said, "The rumors." "I heard." Yanran replied calmly. Lu Jianqing studied her expression. "You don't seem bothered." Yanran thought for a moment.
"They're inconvenient," she said.
"But not dangerous." He raised an eyebrow slightly. "That's an unusual distinction." Yanran smiled faintly. "I've had worse misunderstandings." They walked a few steps in silence. Then Lu Jianqing said, "If it becomes a problem, I can clarify." Yanran stopped. She looked at him carefully.
"Thank you," she said.
"But not yet." He frowned slightly. "Why?" "Because," Yanran said calmly, "right now, the rumors protect me more than they harm me." Lu Jianqing stared at her. For the first time, he felt she wasn't being pushed by circumstances. She was using them. "Understood," he said finally. They parted ways soon after. From a distance, several people watched. See. They walked together. Definitely related. Yanran returned home to find her father sitting stiffly at the table. "You were seen with him," he said immediately. Yanran placed the cloth down. "Yes."
His face tightened.
"Then it's true." Yanran met his gaze calmly. "What do you think?" He couldn't answer. That night, Yanran lay on her bed, listening to the quiet sounds outside. The rumors were louder than ever. But instead of pressure, she felt space. Room to move.
Room to plan.
She touched the ring on her finger. "This life," she murmured, "might actually be interesting." Far away, in the military compound, Lu Jianqing sat at his desk longer than usual. He kept thinking of her calm expression. Not defensive. Not flustered. Controlled. "Interesting," he repeated softly. Rumors reached a point where they stopped being whispers. They became assumptions. By the next day, Su Ling's name carried a strange kind of weight in the neighborhood. People who used to ignore her now greeted her first. Others lowered their voices when she passed. Her father noticed it immediately. At the public well that morning, he overheard two men talking. "That's her father." The girl backed by the military. Better not offend him. The words should have made him proud. Instead, his stomach twisted. He had never had this kind of attention before, and he hadn't earned it. That afternoon, a representative from his work unit called him in. "Comrade Su," the man said carefully, "we've heard some talk." Her father forced a smile.
"Talk."
"There are rumors about your daughter," the man continued, "involving a military officer." Her father laughed awkwardly. "Oh, those are misunderstandings." The representative nodded slowly. "Misunderstandings should be clarified." Her father's smile froze. Back home, he slammed the door. "This has gone too far," he snapped. "You need to explain yourself." Yanran was feeding her mother soup. She didn't even look up. "Explain what?" "That you're not connected to him," her father said urgently. Yanran finally turned to him. "You told people I was going on blind dates for money," she said calmly. "Did you explain that?" He fell silent. Yanran continued evenly. "Rumors don't disappear because they're inconvenient." Her mother frowned weakly. "Lingling, what's happening?" Yanran smiled gently. "Nothing important." But outside, things escalated. That evening, a group of neighbors gathered near the courtyard, pretending to chat. Someone spoke loudly. "I heard the commander is coming tonight." No wonder she's calm. Her father must be relieved. Yanran stepped out calmly. "There's no visit scheduled," she said politely. The group froze. "Oh, then we misunderstood," someone laughed awkwardly. Yanran smiled faintly. "It happens." Just then, a military jeep slowed to a stop at the corner. The timing couldn't have been worse. Heads turned instantly. The jeep stopped. The door opened. Lu Jianqing stepped out, clearly intending to visit someone else nearby, and found himself the center of attention. Yanran closed her eyes briefly. "Of course," she murmured. Lu Jianqing spotted her and paused. So did everyone else. Whispers exploded. That's him. He really came. They didn't deny it. Lu Jianqing approached, expression unreadable. This is unfortunate timing, he said quietly. Yanran nodded. Agreed. The neighbors watched openly now. Lu Jianqing glanced around, then said calmly, I'm here on unrelated business. No one believed him. Yanran spoke instead. Commander Lu, she said politely. Thank you for clarifying. Her tone was respectful, neutral, not intimate. Lu Jianqing understood immediately. He nodded.
Yes.
Clarification is important. The crowd exchanged looks. The message was unclear, but not scandalous. Lu Jianqing turned to leave. Before he did, he added calmly, Your mother is recovering well. Yanran replied, She is. He left. The jeep drove away. The crowd dispersed slowly, disappointed. Her father stood frozen. He had never felt so powerless. Later that night, he approached Yanran quietly. You handled that well, he admitted. Yanran poured water. I didn't handle it, she said calmly. I just didn't panic. He stared at her. The authority he thought he had quietly shifted. Not to the rumors, but to her. That night, Yanran lay awake, listening to the cicadas. She wasn't in danger. She wasn't trapped. She was learning. And somewhere in the underworld, a faint ripple passed through a black gold ring. The compensation was still unfolding. Her father did not sleep that night. Neither did Yanran, but for very different reasons. Just before dawn, her father made a decision he believed was clever. At breakfast, he cleared his throat loudly. I've thought about it, he said. Since the rumors won't die, maybe we should lean into them. Yanran looked up calmly. What do you mean? If people believe you're connected to the military, he continued, we can use that reputation. It'll help with work arrangements, rations, maybe even housing. Yanran took a sip of porridge. And what do I get? She asked. Her father waved his hand. Your family. We all benefit. Yanran put her bowl down gently.
No, she said.
The word was quiet, final. Her father frowned. What do you mean, no? I mean, Yanran said calmly, my life isn't a tool. Her mother watched silently. Her father's voice hardened. You wouldn't have this reputation without me. Yanran met his eyes steadily. I wouldn't need protection, she said evenly. If I'd been protected before. The room went silent. Her father had no answer. Later that morning, Yanran went out alone. She walked to the clinic, paid another installment for her mother's treatment, and spoke politely with the staff. People noticed, not because she was loud, but because she was composed. At the military compound, Lu Jianqing received a message. Commander, the neighborhood is still talking. He sighed. I expected as much. What should we do? Lu Jianqing paused. Nothing, he said finally. The aide blinked. Nothing. Not yet. That evening, Yanran sat by her mother's bed. Her mother held her hand weakly. Lingling, she whispered. Are you scared? Yanran smiled softly. Not really. It was true. She wasn't waiting for rescue. She wasn't bargaining for survival. She was standing. Outside, the ring warmed faintly against her skin. Not magic. Not power. Something else.
Choice.
Far away, Lu Jianqing stood by a window, watching the lights go out across the compound.
He realized something then.
The rumors weren't tying her to him. They were pushing her forward. And for the first time, he wondered if he was the one being pulled into her story. The night deepened, and a new phase began. Yanran didn't expect the proposal to come so quickly. She expected trouble, pressure, maybe another lecture. But not this. It happened 3 days later, right after lunch, when a knock echoed through the courtyard. Her father rushed to open the door before she could stop him. Standing outside were 2 unfamiliar women and 1 man in a plain jacket. We're here to talk about marriage, one woman said cheerfully. Yanran froze mid-step. Marriage? The woman smiled.
Yes.
Commander Lu sighed. Her father's face lit up like he'd won the lottery. Please come in.
Come in.
Yenran pinched the bridge of her nose.
This was not part of her plan.
Inside, tea was poured. Chairs were arranged. The atmosphere was strangely formal. We heard, the woman continued warmly, that the relationship is already understood. So there's no need to drag things out. Yenran finally spoke. I think there's been a misunderstanding. The woman laughed. Young people are shy. We understand. Yenran, no, you really don't. At that exact moment, footsteps sounded outside. Lu Jianqing entered. He stopped when he saw the scene. Yenran looked at him. He looked at the guests. Then at Yenran again. Why are there matchmakers in your house? He asked calmly. Yenran exhaled. Excellent question. Her father jumped in immediately. Commander Lu. Perfect timing. Lu Jianqing's expression stiffened slightly. Yenran stood up. Everyone, please excuse us for a moment. She turned to Lu Jianqing and walked outside. Once they were alone, she spoke quietly. I did not arrange this. I know, he replied. She looked at him.
Good.
There was a pause. Then he added, but the army did send someone. Yenran stared. They what? He rubbed his temple once. To clarify the situation. It escalated. Yenran laughed. Actually laughed. A short, incredulous sound. So, she said, we're victims of efficiency. Lu Jianqing didn't deny it. Inside, voices grew louder. They're talking.
See?
Definitely serious. Yenran crossed her arms. All right, she said. Let's talk like adults. Lu Jianqing nodded. Agreed. She looked him straight in the eye. I don't want romance. I don't want pressure. I need stability. He listened carefully. I need peace for my mother, she continued.
Time.
And protection from nonsense. He considered her words. And you, she asked. What do you need? Lu Jianqing answered honestly. Silence. Order. No distractions. Yenran nodded slowly. Then we're aligned. He raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting? A contract, she finished. Temporary. Clear boundaries. There was a beat. Then he said, that's very modern. Yenran shrugged. I like solutions that work. From inside, someone shouted. So, is it settled? Yenran and Lu Jianqing exchanged a look. She smiled faintly. Well, she said, if we don't answer, they'll decide for us. Lu Jianqing straightened. Then we answer properly. They walked back in together. Everyone leaned forward. Yenran spoke first. We're discussing it, she said calmly. On our terms. The matchmakers beamed. Her father nearly cried with joy. Lu Jianqing added evenly. There will be conditions. The smiles froze, then widened again. Of course. Of course. Yenran sat down. Inside, she felt nothing but clarity. This wasn't surrender. It was negotiation. And she was very good at that. The matchmakers were thrilled. They pulled out notebooks as if they were attending a business meeting. First, one of them said eagerly, the date. Yenran raised a hand. Before dates, we discuss conditions. The woman blinked. Conditions? Lu Jianqing nodded. Yes. Yenran spoke calmly. This is a mutual agreement, not a fairy tale. Her father looked confused. The matchmakers exchanged glances, then smiled politely. Of course. Please continue. Yenran turned to Lu Jianqing. Point 1 duration. He answered without hesitation. 2 years. She considered it. Acceptable. Her father nearly choked on his tea. 2. Yenran ignored him. Point 2, she continued. Living arrangements. Lu Jianqing paused. Separate rooms. Separate households, Yenran corrected. He looked at her. That will raise questions. She smiled faintly. So will shared ones. The matchmakers nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. Point 3, Yenran said. No interference in my family matters. Lu Jianqing nodded. Point 4, she added. Mutual public respect. he replied, naturally. The matchmakers scribbled furiously. Finally, one of them asked carefully, "And affection?" Yenran thought for a second.
Optional, she said.
The room went silent. Lu Jianqing coughed once to hide a smile. Her father looked like he'd aged 10 years. "Well," the woman said slowly, "that's very honest." Yenran leaned back. Honesty saves trouble. After the matchmakers left, still dazed, the courtyard fell quiet. Her father exploded. "You can't treat marriage like a work contract." Yenran looked at him calmly. "Then don't treat daughters like bargaining chips." He fell silent. Lu Jianqing spoke evenly. "We'll register later. There's no rush." Yenran nodded. "Good." As he prepared to leave, he paused. "This arrangement," he said, "won't trap you." Yenran met his gaze. "I don't walk into traps," she replied. "I map them." That night, the neighborhood buzzed. "They're engaged. No ceremony yet. Very modern." Yenran listened from her room, amused. The ring on her finger pulsed faintly. Not magic. Confirmation. And somewhere deep within the system that governed fate, a minor error was being corrected. The registration office smelled of old paper and ink. Yenran stood in line calmly, holding her documents. Lu Jianqing stood beside her, posture straight, as if he were attending inspection. People kept looking at them, not subtly. The clerk glanced up, froze for half a second, then straightened. "Commander Lu?" "Yes," he replied evenly. Her eyes flicked to Yenran. "Marriage registration?" Yenran nodded. "Yes." The clerk immediately sat up straighter. "Please proceed." Yenran handed over the papers. The clerk examined them carefully, then paused. "Do you live together?"
No, Yenran answered.
"Yes," Lu Jianqing said at the same time. They both stopped. Yenran turned slowly. Lu Jianqing cleared his throat. "Eventually." The clerk blinked. "Eventually?" Yenran leaned forward slightly. "Separate residences. Mutual agreement." The clerk stared, then nodded slowly. "Very progressive." Behind them, someone whispered, "Even the army is modern now."
Forms were stamped.
Photos were taken. Yenran kept a neutral expression. Lu Jianqing looked like he was facing a firing squad. Outside, a small crowd had gathered. Word traveled fast. "So, it's official? They're already married? Did you see how calm she is?" A woman stepped forward. "Comrade, are you happy?" she asked Yenran kindly. Yenran thought for a moment. "Yes," she said honestly. It wasn't romantic happiness. It was relief. Lu Jianqing glanced at her. That answer had surprised him. On the way back, they walked side by side in silence. After a while, he spoke. "If anyone causes trouble, I'll handle it," Yenran replied calmly.
He paused.
"I didn't finish." She looked at him. "I'll handle it," he said. "With you." Yenran considered that. "All right," she said. At home, her father stared at the registration booklet like it was unreal. "You really did it." Yenran took it from him and put it away. "Yes." That night, fireworks went off somewhere in the distance. Not for them, but the timing felt symbolic. Yenran lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't tied down. She wasn't rescued. She had signed a contract. And contracts she knew how to manage. In the military dormitory, Lu Jianqing sat on his bed, holding his own copy. He realized something unsettling. This wasn't chaos. This was structure. And somehow, he felt steadier than before. Marriage changed things. Not emotionally. Socially. The very next morning, Yenran went to buy vegetables. The vendor smiled too widely. "So, sister-in-law," she said cheerfully, "Commander treat you well?" Yenran paid calmly. "He treats people according to rules." The vendor blinked. "That's good." Yenran nodded. "Very." At the tofu stall, someone whispered loudly, "She's probably bossy at home." Yenran turned. "I'm quiet at home," she said politely. The woman laughed awkwardly. News spread fast. "She's sharp. She doesn't get flustered. No wonder the commander respects her." At noon, Yanran encountered her step-aunt near the well. Married already? The woman scoffed. So rushed. Were you afraid someone would take him? Yanran smiled gently. No, she replied. I was afraid someone would waste time. The step-aunt had no response. That afternoon, Yanran visited the clinic. A nurse whispered, Your husband came by yesterday. Yanran paused. He did.
Yes.
Asked about recovery plans. Yanran nodded. That's like him. The nurse looked impressed. Outside, Lu Jiancheng was, in fact, dealing with something else entirely. Two young soldiers argued quietly. Is it true your commander married for convenience? Sounds cold. Lu Jiancheng interrupted calmly. Convenience is efficient, he said. Efficiency saves energy. The soldiers stared. Yes, sir. That evening, Yanran returned home to find her father unusually polite. He offered her tea. Do you need anything? He asked carefully. Yanran accepted the tea.
No.
He hesitated. You seem capable. Yanran met his eyes. I always was, she said calmly. That night, Lu Jiancheng visited briefly to deliver medicine.
He stayed standing.
Yanran handed him the receipt. Thank you. He nodded. After a pause, he said, You handled today well. Yanran replied lightly. People talk less when they realize words won't move you. He considered that. Watching her calmly organize medicine, he realized something quietly unsettling. She didn't need protection from the world. She simply refused to be shaken by it. And that was far more powerful. The ring warmed faintly again. Somewhere beyond sight, fate adjusted its calculations. The error was no longer an error. It was adapting. The confrontation happened at dinner. Yanran hadn't planned it, but pressure, like steam, always finds a crack. Her father set his chopsticks down heavily. You're married now, he said. You should think about family reputation. Yanran continued eating calmly. Reputation doesn't feed people, she replied. Her step-aunt snorted. Don't be arrogant just because you married well. Yanran looked up. I didn't marry up, she said evenly. I married forward. The table went silent. Her father's face darkened. Enough. You should listen. Yanran put her chopsticks down. This is where I stop, she said calmly. Everyone looked at her. I will support my mother, she continued. I will decide my life. And I will not be discussed as leverage. Her father stood up. You're being unfilial. The door opened. Lu Jiancheng stepped in. He hadn't planned to stay, but he had heard enough. Disrespecting my wife, he said calmly, is unacceptable. The word, wife, landed heavily. Her father froze. Lu Jiancheng continued evenly. She owes nothing to you. Yanran didn't smile.
She didn't need to.
Afterward, as they walked outside, Lu Jiancheng spoke quietly. You didn't ask me to intervene. Yanran nodded. I could handle it. He replied, I know. They stopped under a streetlight. But sometimes, he added, support isn't rescue. Yanran looked at him. It's alignment, she finished. He nodded. That night, Yanran felt something settle. No fear.
No regret.
Just clarity. The ring pulsed warmly. Deep in the system of rebirth, a final note appeared. Compensation accepted. Fate stabilized. Asterisk, asterisk. And for the first time, Yanran slept without dreaming. Lu Jiancheng received his transfer order early in the morning. 3 months. Field duty. He read the notice twice, then folded it neatly. By the time Yanran heard about it, he was already at the gate. You're leaving? She asked. Yes, today, he replied. She paused. Oh, that was all. They stood there for a moment, unsure what to say next. Finally, Yanran spoke again. Be careful. He nodded. I will. Another pause. It was awkward. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. She handed him a small cloth bag. I put dried dates inside, she said. They help with fatigue. He took it carefully. Thank you. Then, after a moment, he added, all right. Yanran looked up, surprised. All right. The jeep honked lightly. Lu Jiancheng turned, then hesitated. If anything happens, he said, send word. Yenran smiled faintly. Nothing will. He looked at her for a second longer, then got into the jeep. She watched until it disappeared. Only then did she realize. The courtyard felt quieter. That evening, Yenran cooked dinner alone. Her mother noticed. He left, she asked gently. Yes. Do you miss him? Yenran stirred the soup. I'm not used to the silence yet. Her mother smiled knowingly. Days passed. Yenran settled into a rhythm. Clinic visits.
Work. Cooking.
People still whispered, but less boldly. One night, a letter arrived. The handwriting was neat. Everything is fine here. Food is rough. Training is intense. Don't overwork. Jiancheng. Yenran reread it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it under her pillow. She wrote back. Mother is improving.
I'm fine.
Eat properly. She hesitated, then added one more line. Don't get hurt. At the camp, Lu Jianqing read that line longer than the rest. He didn't smile, but his grip on the paper tightened slightly. Far away, under the same night sky, two people lived separate lives, yet thought of each other quietly. And, without realizing it, something real had begun. Life didn't pause just because Lu Jianqing was gone. Yenran still woke up early, lined up for rations, and went to the clinic with her mother. One afternoon, a man from her father's work unit came by. Comrade Yenran, he said politely, we need to verify your household status. Yenran nodded. All right. They sat at the table. Your husband isn't present? He's on duty. The man hesitated. Some procedures require both parties. Yenran smiled calmly. Then we wait.
No arguing. No panique.
The man nodded, slightly impressed. That night, Yenran wrote a letter. There was a small issue today. I handled it. Don't worry. At the camp, Lu Jianqing read it after training. He frowned slightly. He didn't like that she had to handle things alone. He wrote back immediately. If anyone troubles you, tell me. I can request leave. Yenran received the letter 2 days later. She laughed softly. She wrote back. It's fine. You're not a shield. I married a person. When Lu Jianqing read that, he went quiet for a long time. A few days later, a neighbor came over. Your husband hasn't written lately? The woman asked casually. Yenran shook her head. He wrote yesterday. The woman smiled teasingly. You sound proud. Yenran didn't deny it. That evening, Yenran cooked a little extra food without realizing it. Halfway through, she paused. Habit already, she murmured. She packed the leftovers anyway, then laughed at herself. At the camp, Lu Jianqing sat with a bowl of plain porridge. He thought of her cooking, then shook his head lightly. Focus, he told himself. That night, he dreamed of home. Not the house. Her. The way she spoke calmly. The way she listened. When Yenran received his next letter, it was shorter. Training is hard.
I'm fine.
I miss your cooking. Yenran stared at that last line, then smiled. She folded the letter carefully. Something warm settled quietly in her chest. Not dramatic. Not urgent. Just steady. The problem started with silence. 3 days passed. No letter. Yenran told herself it was normal. Training was busy. Mail was slow. Still, she checked the gate every evening. On the 4th day, a neighbor mentioned casually, I heard there was field training near the border. Yenran paused mid-step. Oh, she said lightly. That sounds tiring. That night, she didn't sleep well. Her mother noticed. You're worried, she said softly. Yenran shook her head. Just thinking. Another day passed. Still no letter. At the market, someone said, military exercises are dangerous. My cousin didn't write for weeks. Yenran paid for her vegetables, hands steady. At home, she sat at the table longer than usual, then finally wrote, Didn't receive your letter. Are you all right? At the camp, Lu Jianqing read her letter late at night. He frowned. He had written twice. Mail had been delayed. He replied immediately.
I've fine.
Training moved locations. Didn't know letters were late.
I'm sorry.
When Yenran received it, Relief washed over her so suddenly she had to sit down. She pressed the paper lightly to her chest. That evening, she cooked soup. For no reason. Just because it felt right. At the camp, Lu Jiancheng received a reply. I worried. Don't do that again. He stared at that sentence for a long time. Then wrote back. I'll try not to. He paused. Then added one more line. I thought of you when I was tired. Yanran read that line twice. Her ears felt warm. She folded the letter and tucked it away carefully. This feeling. It wasn't loud, but it stayed. Like something quietly taking root. The notice came suddenly. Yanran was washing vegetables when someone knocked. A young soldier stood at the gate.
Kamratsu Yanran.
Yes. Commander Lu will be home tomorrow afternoon. Short leave. Yanran froze. Tomorrow? The soldier nodded and left. Yanran stood there for a moment, hands still wet. Her mother watched her quietly. You should clean the room, her mother said gently. Yanran blinked. It's already clean. Her mother smiled. Then cook something nice. The next day felt long. Yanran cleaned anyway. She cooked more dishes than usual, then worried it looked like she was trying too hard. By afternoon, she sat by the window, pretending to read. Footsteps sounded. The gate opened. Lu Jiancheng walked in, dust on his uniform, eyes tired. Yanran stood up. You're back. Yes. They looked at each other. Then both spoke at the same time. You look tired. You look well. They stopped. Yanran laughed softly. He relaxed a little. Inside, she poured him water. He drank it slowly. This is good, he said. I missed it. She didn't ask what he meant. Dinner was quiet but warm. At one point, he reached for a dish, then paused. You made this for me? Yanran nodded. You said you missed it. He looked at her for a long moment. After dinner, they stood in the courtyard. The evening was cool. Thank you, he said suddenly. For what? For waiting. Yanran shook her head. I wasn't waiting. I was living. He smiled faintly. Before leaving, he hesitated. Can I come back again? Yanran met his eyes. Of course, she said simply. That night, after he left, the house felt warm. Not because of people, but because something had quietly settled in place. Lu Jiancheng didn't leave immediately. He stood by the gate, hands in his pockets. Yanran, he said. Yes. He hesitated. I don't know how long I'll be away next time. She nodded. I know. Another pause. Then he said, I'll write more often. Yanran smiled. I'll read them. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. Just full. He reached out, then stopped himself. Instead, he handed her something small. A folded piece of cloth. What's this? She asked. A badge cover, he said. I fixed it myself. Yanran took it carefully. You're not good at sewing. He nodded honestly. I know. She smiled, fingers brushing the rough stitches. Thank you. Before leaving, he looked at her once more. I'm glad, he said quietly. About what?
About this.
She didn't ask him to explain.
She didn't need to.
As he walked away, Yanran felt something shift. Not sudden. Not overwhelming. Just sure. That night, she placed the badge cover beside her pillow. The ring on her finger stayed quiet.
No pulses. No warniness.
As if it, too, was content. Far away, Lu Jiancheng looked up at the night sky. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he had somewhere to return to. Yanran woke before sunrise, as usual. She stood at the window, stretching, and glanced at the ring on her finger. It pulsed faintly, warm, steady, like a heartbeat she could feel but no one else could see. Today she had plans. Her mother still needed careful care, and the clinic required her attention. But she also wanted to test something, magic she hadn't fully explored yet. In the kitchen, she began preparing breakfast. The water in the kettle stirred slightly on its own, moving evenly to avoid boiling over. The rice in the pot bubbled perfectly. Nothing flashy, just small adjustments that made life smoother. Her mother peeked in. Lingling, Breakfast smells nice already. Yenran smiled. I wanted everything to be ready for you this morning.
No rusing.
As she served her mother, she noticed a weak patient in the clinic she had visited yesterday. The woman had been struggling to carry her medicine home. Yenran focused quietly, willing the bag to shift gently in the wind, nudging it so the path was safer and easier. It moved just enough to prevent stumbling. Her mother watched silently, puzzled. You're walking extra slowly today? Yenran shook her head. It's nothing. Later, a letter arrived from Lu Jianqing. Training was exhausting today. Are you resting properly? She read it carefully, a faint warmth spreading in her chest. He cares, she murmured softly. She wrote back. I'm taking care of mother.
Don't worry about me.
And eat properly yourself. After sending it, she returned to her chores. As she swept the yard, leaves shifted subtly, clearing the path to make walking easier for her mother. The magic was quiet, almost imperceptible, but efficient. By evening, the house was calm. Dinner was ready early, her mother rested comfortably, and the patient's medicine had been delivered safely. Yenran sat by the window, the ring warm on her finger. She didn't need to show anyone her power.
She didn't want to.
It was hers to use for good. And somewhere far away, Lu Jianqing looked at the horizon during his quiet night watch. Without knowing it, he felt a sense of ease, as if everything at home was under safe hands. He would write again tomorrow, and she would read it, quietly smiling to herself. The first real moment she felt in this world wasn't fear or uncertainty. It was control. The next morning, Yenran rose early again. Her mother was already awake, coughing lightly. Yenran knelt beside her bed, placing a warm cloth on her forehead. She focused quietly, letting the ring adjust the room's temperature just enough to ease her mother's discomfort. No one else could notice. It was subtle, almost like a gentle breeze. Lingling, her mother whispered. You're always taking care of me. Yenran smiled softly. I will always take care of you, mother. Don't worry. After breakfast, she went to the clinic with her basket of supplies. A sick child struggled to carry a small bundle of medicine. Without a sound, the bundle shifted slightly, moving closer to the child with gentle assistance. The child's eyes widened, but no one else seemed to notice. Yenran knelt and helped the child up. Careful. Almost there. Later, she received a letter from Lu Jianqing. Are you resting properly? Yenran held the paper and smiled faintly. She wrote back carefully.
Yes.
Everything is fine. She hesitated, then added quietly. Take care of yourself too. The afternoon was quiet, but Yenran didn't stop working. She used subtle magic to help with small tasks, stirring soup evenly, adjusting the water temperature for the bath, moving heavy bundles just enough to make carrying them easier. Everything was invisible, unnoticed, but effective. By evening, the house felt calm, orderly. Her mother rested comfortably. Yenran's chores were complete. She sat by the window, letter in hand, staring at the sky as the last rays of sunlight faded. The ring pulsed faintly, a soft reminder of the gift she had received from another world. Somewhere far away, Lu Jianqing stared at the night sky again. He thought of her, knowing she would handle everything with care, and a rare smile crossed his lips. They were apart, yet connected, not by magic, but by trust, thought, and quiet devotion. And Yenran, sitting by the window, felt a steady warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. Lu Jianqing returned unexpectedly the next day, his uniform slightly dusty from the journey. Yenran was preparing the house, her heart fluttering when she heard the knock. Lingling, he said softly, stepping inside. I'm home. She smiled faintly, brushing her hands over her apron. Welcome back. He closed the door behind him and looked at her. The air felt heavier, warmer, charged in a quiet way. Without words, he reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. After dinner they walked to the bedroom prepared for them. The space simple but comfortable, lit softly by lanterns. Lu Jianqing brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. I've waited for this moment. Yenran felt a shiver run through her. Me too. They didn't rush. First, They just stood close, feeling each other's presence. His hand rested gently on her waist, her hand on his chest. Their lips met in a soft, lingering kiss, slow and tender. The world outside vanished. The stress, the distance, the worries of the past days. All of it faded. Lu Jianqing's hands moved carefully over her back, feeling her relax against him. Yanran wrapped her arms around his neck, holding him tightly, a warmth spreading between them. They explored each other gently, discovering the comfort and intensity of being together for the first time. Every touch, every kiss was filled with emotion, desire, and quiet love. Later, they lay together, bodies close, breathing slowly in sync. Yanran rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "You're real," she whispered. "And you're mine," he replied softly. The night stretched on, filled with quiet laughter, soft touches, and whispered words. By morning, the room was calm, warm with the memory of the night. They were together, not just as a married couple in name, but as partners, connected in every sense. Outside, the world continued, but inside that room, time felt suspended, and nothing else mattered. It was their first night, and it would linger in memory forever. The first morning felt different. Sunlight streamed softly through the curtains, touching the warm stillness of the room. Yanran stirred, feeling the presence of Lu Jiancheng beside her. He was awake, quiet, watching her with a faint smile. "Morning," he said softly. Yanran blinked and smiled back.
Morning.
They lingered in bed. He reached over, brushing her hair from her face, and she leaned into his touch. Finally, Yanran got up to start breakfast. The house felt more alive with him there, yet somehow easier to manage. She whispered to the ring subtly, letting it warm the water for tea and adjust the stove's heat just enough to cook efficiently. Everything moved smoothly. Lu Jianqing followed her into the kitchen, arms crossed lazily. "You don't have to do everything." Yanran smiled faintly. "I like things orderly."
And you're here now.
"I can manage better." He leaned against the doorway, watching her with something unreadable in his eyes. "I like seeing you like this." She paused, holding a teacup, and looked at him. "Like this?"
Focused. Calm.
"Beautiful." Her cheeks warmed, and she turned back to the stove, pretending not to notice. They moved together through the morning quietly. Yanran prepared breakfast while the ring assisted subtly, and Lu Jiancheng helped with small chores, carrying trays, arranging utensils, without saying much. When they finally sat down to eat, he reached for her hand across the table. "We'll be okay like this," he said softly. Yanran squeezed his hand gently. "We already are." The morning stretched on in quiet harmony, coffee brewed perfectly, bread toasted evenly, and the small warmth of magic humming quietly under Yanran's control. It was domestic, simple, yet intimate. And both of them knew, silently, that living together this way, sharing tasks, laughter, and quiet touches, was just the beginning of something much deeper. The afternoon was quiet, the house filled with a soft hum of daily life. Yanran was folding laundry, arranging clothes carefully on the shelf. The ring pulsed faintly, subtly helping her smooth the wrinkles. No one else would notice, but the work went faster, easier, more precise. Lu Jiancheng leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her move. "You're too precise," he said lightly. She glanced up, smirking. "I like order."
You know that.
He pushed off the wall and approached her. "Order is good, but don't forget to rest too." Yanran laughed softly. "I rest when I'm done." He crouched slightly to reach her level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It can done if you let me help." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right." Together, they carried baskets to the small drying area outside. The sun was warm, and the light breeze stirred the clothes gently. The ring assisted subtly again, keeping heavier baskets steady, making sure nothing slipped. Yanran didn't need to think about it. It was effortless, precise. Lu Jianqing noticed her efficiency and smiled faintly. "You're remarkable. I could hardly manage this on my own." Yanran looked up at him, cheeks lightly pink. "I don't need you to manage." Just be here. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I will always be here. Later, they sat together on the small veranda, sipping tea. Yenran leaned slightly against him, her hand brushing his. They didn't speak much. Words weren't necessary. The quiet warmth, the shared glance, the subtle comfort of being together said more than anything. The ring pulsed faintly, a private reminder of the abilities she had and the responsibilities she carried. But right now, she focused on him, the small gestures, the intimacy of domestic life. Lu Jianqing wrapped an arm gently around her shoulders. We'll figure everything out together. Yenran rested her head lightly against him.
Together.
The afternoon faded into evening, the world outside moving on, but inside that small house, the rhythm of two lives blending quietly, steadily, had begun. The next morning, a small challenge arose. Yenron's mother needed extra supplies for her recovery, but the local store had only a limited amount of ingredients. The path was muddy from last night's rain, and it would be exhausting to carry everything home. Yenran focused quietly, letting the ring assist. Heavy baskets shifted subtly in her hands, the straps adjusted perfectly to her grip. Nothing anyone could see, just smooth, efficient motion that made the load feel lighter. By the time she reached the store, she was calm and composed, carrying more than anyone would have expected. She paid quickly and walked back, the ring subtly keeping her footing steady on the slick path. At home, Lu Jianqing noticed her entrance and the way she carried everything so effortlessly. When did you go? I would have gone instead. Yenran smiled faintly. I'm used to managing. He shook his head, smiling. You make everything look easy. Once inside, she unpacked everything and prepared a proper meal for her mother. She whispered softly to the ring, subtly adjusting the heat of the stove and the water for cooking. The food came out perfect, nothing burnt, nothing undercooked. Lu Jianqing helped where he could, but he watched her mostly, impressed by how quietly and effectively she handled everything. Later, they sat together, sharing the meal. Their conversation was light, touching on small topics, but the warmth between them was undeniable. You always think of everything, Lu Jianqing said quietly. Even things I wouldn't notice. Yenran reached for his hand across the table. I do what I can. For us. He held her hand gently, squeezing it once, a subtle sign of affection. Afterwards, she cleaned up, letting the ring assist in keeping everything orderly. She didn't need to show its presence. She only used it to make life smoother and safer. As the evening settled, they stood together at the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. You make this house feel like home, Lu Jianqing said softly. Yenran leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. We're making it together. The quiet intimacy, the shared responsibility, the subtle assistance of the magic, all of it wove their lives closer, layer by layer. And for the first time, she felt fully settled in this world, not just surviving, but truly living alongside him. The evening was calm. The house was quiet, warmed by lanterns and the soft glow of the fading sun. Yenran sat at the small table, folding laundry. Lu Jianqing watching her quietly, a faint smile on his lips. He walked over slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I love you, you know, right? Yenran felt a warmth spread through her chest. I'll love you too, she admitted softly. He smiled, stepping closer. I'll always be here. She set the laundry aside and reached for him. Their hands met, fingers entwining naturally. They didn't rush, didn't speak too much, just enjoyed the quiet intimacy of being together. Later, in the bedroom, the night was theirs. They explored each other tenderly, every touch and kiss carrying all the longing, care, and trust they had built over weeks apart and together. It was their first night as a married couple in the fullest sense, not just in name, but in body, heart, and mind. No words were necessary. The world outside didn't matter. Every movement, every embrace, every whisper of each other's name was enough. When dawn finally arrived, they lay together, bodies intertwined, breathing slowly in sync. Yenran rested her head on Lu Jianqing's chest, feeling his steady heartbeat beneath her ear. "You're mine," he whispered. "And you're mine," she replied softly. Outside, the sun rose over the village. Inside, the house was warm, alive with love and quiet strength. The ring on Yenran's finger pulsed faintly, a silent reminder of the power she wielded, but she didn't need it tonight. Because she had something far greater. Trust. Love. A life she had chosen, with someone who would always be by her side. And finally, for the first time since her rebirth, Yenran felt completely at peace. The future was uncertain, yes, but with Lu Jiancheng, with her magic quietly aiding good, and with the life they were building together, she was ready for anything. The story of Bai Yenran and Lu Jiancheng ended here, not with finality, but with a beginning that would last a lifetime.